Welcome to Sports and Songs. There's a little Black Sabbath there for us, Andy, to kick things off.
It started with Black Sabbath.
A little Sweet Leaf to start things off. I'm your host, Dan. This is Andy here calling in remotely. Today is episode 37 of Sports and Songs. How are you doing, Andy?
Doing good. You're out on assignment.
I'm on assignment. If the users can see behind me here, the baseball stadium, I am currently on site for Sports and Songs in Springfield, Minnesota, site of the Class C State Amateur Baseball Tournament. Round 2 will be kicking off tomorrow night and all weekend, and so I'll be here reporting on the scores and whatnot on the Facebook page for Sports and Songs. So it'll be pretty interesting. It's a nice, lovely day here. Not many people here, of course. There's a campground right on site, which is expected to be full by tomorrow night, and it should be good. We're down to the 32 teams left in the state after this weekend. That'll be down to the Sweet 16. I did a YouTube prediction show and a brackets show for Class C. I'll post that link in the description section for this, and kind of went over the games for this coming weekend at both here at the Springfield location and at the Milroy, home of the Milroy Yankees location. So those are the two locations here. There's, of course, Class B going on this weekend. All those games are hosted in Shakopee, and Class A is done. Their tournament ended, and the Minnetonka Millers won their 15th state amateur baseball tournament for Class A. So Class A is done. Like I said, 8 teams left in Class B, 32 teams remaining in Class C. So there's really 40 teams left playing baseball in the state of Minnesota, only 40. So
this is more fun. With the high school kind of being up in the air with high school sports, this is our chance to see nice amateur baseball.
Oh, it's good. It's good stuff too. And the crowds are limited, to 250 due to the pandemic. A max of 250 are allowed into the gates. Tickets are $7 for each game, and they will run everybody out, bring in everybody again in for the following game. 1 game Friday night, 4 games Saturday, and 3 games on Sunday. And you can see the local train here going by. Like I said here, I'm on assignment here with Sports and Songs, just doing the best we can here. And
okay, let the train go. It's kind of like the Saints game at the old stadium with the train going by.
It's like that.
The Midway Stadium.
It's like the old Midway with the train. And I'm showing here on the screen here, and I know you're calling in, you can't see it, but I've got the links for all of our various social media for Sports and Songs.
Okay,
Facebook,
great.
Twitter, Instagram. If you're watching this at home, jot these down. Go to the YouTube page. We've got a blog. And that's it. That's all the information there is for those on social media. And then, and for those who haven't seen this image yet, it's an image of Andy and I and the Hams Bear at the convention at the Medina this last spring. And so that's the Hams Bear there. That also has the locations of our social media sites, how you can get a hold of us, how you can send in requests for album of the week, music requests, sports requests, things like that. But let's get the show started. Where do you want to start today?
High school news. Like I said before, high school sports, a lot of fall sports have been pushed back. Some are canceling, some are postponing for football. Some are postponing football till spring. A lot of the leagues, like football and volleyball, will spring. Soccer, cross country, girls tennis, swimming, and diving will remain in the fall. A lot of the northern schools, I saw from the Bemidji newspaper, and I'm pretty sure from around here too, trap shooting, which is becoming real big in some of the outskirts towns and northern towns, they are still going to have a fall season. So go to your gun club. I'm pretty sure you can watch and support these kids too. The amazing thing what they do is trap shooting. God bless them. There's no way I could do anything like that. So it's kind of fun to watch. Something a little different. I mean, they're not releasing pheasants and shooting them, and there's clay pigeons. So, but yeah, support these kids too at your school. You can't go buy a football ticket right now, but maybe you can if they're selling something, support them or go watch them, give them some love and support there for the high school sports. We don't have any news on that, but also on our Facebook page, Dan mentioned the state tournament. Also, there's the Northern League is going on. It's a minor league, old minor league system here in Minnesota. We've been posting updates for that on our social media pages. So there's more baseball for you to follow there. Guys in the Northern League are guys who are maybe minor leaguers who aren't playing right now. College players get some extra time in. High school guys trying to stay in shape to go to college. So it's good, fun baseball to watch there. Moving on to some pro wrestling news. AEW is one of the pro wrestling ones we talk about a lot here. And one of their big stars and one of the owners of the league, or the association, will be off for an extended period, as they say. Cody Rhodes, because he goes by Cody because of Vince McMahon owning the name Rhodes, was a victim of a violent attack at the end of the AEW Dynamite episode last week. He suffered the attack at the hands of Brody Lee and the Dark Order shortly after losing the TNT Championship to Mr. Brody Lee. Now, wrestling fans know that when someone's injured and off TV for a while, back in my youth, that usually meant they're going to Japan to wrestle for a while, or they're just taking some time off. In this case, it's the same thing. Cody's taking time off to film some TV shows. He's good friends with Stephen Amell, who used to be on Green Arrow show on CW. Stephen Amell did some wrestling with Cody in WWE. Stephen has a new TV show on the Stars network called Stars Heels, and he's asked Cody to do some work with him on there. So Cody's quote-unquote injury is for time off to do some TV filming, and Cody has had a big schedule lately, so he is taking some much-deserved time off. Also, speaking of AEW, like we've mentioned before, too, a lot of guys from NWA have been showing up on AEW to wrestle. So Eddie Kingston and Ricky Starks have shown up, both of them to challenge Cody for the title, and finally, funny, they both have contracts off AEW. When Ricky Starks went, he gave up his TV title before he went there. He just dropped the belt. Because NWA wasn't wrestling for a while. They had shut down camp for a while through the whole pandemic here. So he said, I don't want to be TV champ anymore. See you, bye. And he went, which is fine and great. Ziggy Dice was TV champ. He said, see you, bye, too. So people have lost the belts and gone. The AEW Women's Champion, Thunder Rosa, it's the best I can do with 3 years high school Spanish to say Thunder Rosa. She is being promoted as the NWA Women's Champion, and she's going to go against Haruka Shidaya, AEW Women's Champion, at their next pay-per-view coming up. Now, she is being promoted as the NWA Women's Champion. So I don't know if this means NWA and AEW will be working together more often. Is this she wants to wrestle to get some of the ring rust off. Since our NWA title's not on the line, we'll let you wrestle there and come back. Gives NWA a little publicity, too, which I think is great. Some of these smaller groups working together. Like we said before, speculation of AEW and NWA merging, working together, we shall see. Thunder Rosa was a major part of NWA for the last 12 months beforehand, so she was a big character there. There was an extra one they're trying to get rid of. They got a lot of money invested in her and time invested in her, so we'll see how that works out. Good luck to her on that. Getting into a little college sports, sticking up with the Bemidji State area. Beaver basketball faces delays of season at best. The NCIS, their sports, they're just moving that to January 1st of 2021. That's how far they're pushing stuff out for basketball and that. They're not postponing the whole season. They just want to wait and see what happens. Be a very condensed schedule. We'll see how it goes. In the light of the coronavirus pandemic, NCIS Board of Directors decided on August 13th to cancel the fall sports season and push back the earliest competition date for winter sports at January 1st of 2021. Because Bemidji State's only other winter programs are the men's and women's hockey, both Division I teams in the WCHA, Beaver basketball so far is the only winter sport set to face the music, if you will. Over the summer, the Northern Sun Conference did axe all non-conference games on the schedule, dropping the regular season schedule to a maximum of 22 games. That number very well could be dropped again, depending how everything goes. So we'll see, but they're still trying to get some sort of basketball season off up there. to the northern schools, so that'd be fun and exciting to watch there. I know here we've heard with Big Ten, Pac-10 canceled football. Other sports are all still up in the air. Really, I don't want to report anything on it because it could change next week, the week after. So until we hear something more set, now that school has started and people are back in, at some schools we'll wait and see what happens, what they do with that. Shifting gears, if you will. Nice little segue word there. Shifting gears to NASCAR. This Saturday is the final race at Daytona for the regular race season before their playoffs start. So the last chance for the last few drivers to jockey and get points for positions to make the playoffs. Fan favorite Jimmy Johnson is on the bubble, might not make the playoffs, and Jimmy Johnson did announce at the beginning of the year this would be his last season. Other people have asked him, well, if you don't make it, you got to come back for one more, and he said, no, I'm done. Now, if you don't make the playoffs, you still race in those other races on, kind of be spoiler. Jimmy Johnson don't make the playoffs. I'd still watch for him in the playoffs because he's going to play spoiler. You can help out your buddies by letting them draft with you or block other guys. It's really exciting in NASCAR in the playoffs, their quote-unquote playoffs. So give that a watch this Saturday night under the lights. Daytona International Speedway Saturday, 6 p.m. here, Minnesota time. The rest of you across the country, I have to do the math. That's 7 east, 5 in the mountains. Or I'm sorry, 5 out on the west coast, and all right, 5 in the mountains, 4 out on the west coast. A little bit of Major League Baseball news. The Mets did have some positive coronavirus results earlier this week, so they had a couple games postponed. They're trying to make those up as doubleheaders. I just what do you think I got now? The Mets got it. There's no reports coming out, kind of like with other teams where guys went to casinos or family did it. No word yet how they got it. They just got it. Either way, not pointing fingers at people, but just, guys, we've got to be careful. You begged and begged for some sort of season. You got a 60-gamer. Be careful. So we got to do what we got to do there for baseball on that. Some other baseball notes, some good notes. That was announced this week that Cal Ripken Jr. had announced he is cancer-free after being diagnosed with prostate cancer back in February. Most of us know of who had friends or family with cancer, prostate cancer, or anything else. You can be cancer-free for now, but still, hope Cal takes care of himself, keeps getting those checkups, as everybody should. I know, not speaking for people my age bracket in the over 40, well over 40 group, we'll say, soon to be in the 50 group. That's not a great exam to get, but guys, you got to get it done. So just be careful and take care of that. Some more good news. This week in baseball history, a little note here before the history stuff. I thought it was kind of special. It was 84 years ago this week that a 17-year-old named Bob Feller for Cleveland made his Major League Baseball debut against the St. Louis Browns. Feller earned the victory by striking out 15 batters. Also, this year, in Indians news, Tristan McKenzie, rookie, makes his first start, gets 10 strikeouts. Now, of course, Bob has the record. Other Indians all-time leaders for strikeouts their first start, some good name here, Louis Tiant had 11 back in 1964. Herb Score had 9. Floyd Weaver had 8. So, some good there, but that Tristan McKenzie, I don't think that was a fluke. He looks like he's going to be a good kid. Watched Cleveland take care of the Twins last couple days on TV. They got a nice young pitching staff there in Cleveland. As much as it hurts to say, watch out for the Tribe. This could be real this time. Next year, not this year though. And that's what I got for sports. Dan, do you have anything else you want to add on that?
Nothing more to add on that. I think we can get into the history, the birthdays, and this day in sports and music segment. So go ahead with that. What I'll do for the listeners here is I'll bring up the images that we have here for the viewers, and you can chat about the updates, and I'll bring them up.
And kind of like Dan said at the beginning, we put our social media sites up there. If there's you're a fan of a team or a player, you know something that's coming up for their this week in history or their birthday, let us know. Drop us know on the page, on the Facebook page or something. We'll be more than happy to mention it. If we miss one, let us know. We'll make a correction later on. Or we admit it, we make mistakes. So here we go. This week in sports history, August 24th, 1982, Kansas City's John Watson steals his 31st en route to 36 bases for a catcher as a record for that season.
John Watson. Nice.
Didn't he manage for a while there too, I think?
Yes.
He did. And 36 bases stolen in a year for a catcher. I don't know many catchers that have that in a career. You know, he did it in a season. So, 1989, Pete Rose is suspended from baseball for life for gambling. 2006, after signing a one-day contract with the San Francisco 49ers, Jerry Rice officially retires from the NFL. When legends like Jerry Rice will say, and I know Emmitt Smith did this, they think they got a few years left, they go on elsewhere after a great career with someone. Then they come back for that one-day contract to retire with that team. Okay, I think that's kind of cool, but you know what? I don't know if I'd let a guy do that. If you thought you were done and you'd want to, I don't know if they do it for publicity bid. I don't know if you do it just so the guy could say, hey, I retired to the 49er. I don't know how that works, how they sign their one-day contracts. I sure hope it was for the league minimum, too. I don't know. Birthdays, 1944. Bill Goldsworthy, former of the Minnesota North Stars, was born in Canada. Bill Goldsworthy after he retired, wrote a book called The Gordy Shuffle. I've read the book. I have a copy of it here on my bookshelf. You see a lot of kids in high school and college, and after they score a goal, they slide and pump their arms on one knee. That's the Goldie Shuffle. Bill Goldsworthy started that. After he retired, he grew up in the Minnetonka area. His kids went to Minnetonka High School. Not that I knew them, just saying that his family still lives in the area, very prominent in the area. Goldsworthy, birthday in 1944. He did pass away in 96, I believe. 1952, Mike Shanahan, coach of the Broncos, was born in Oak Park, Illinois. Speaking of earlier, 1960, Cal Ripken Jr., American League Baseball Hall of Famer, was born in Maryland. 1965, Reggie Miller, the Indiana Pacers, also Olympic gold medalist in 96, born 1965. I think Reggie Miller tells the story of his sister, Cheryl Miller, great WNBA player where she started. Just like with hockey here in Minnesota, she had to play basketball with the boys. She was very good, but I guess my favorite Reggie Miller part is him punking out John Starks and Spike Lee in the playoffs, so that was pretty cool. And 1945, WWE owner Vince McMahon, birthday. August 25th, 1921, New York Yankees pitcher Harry Harper hits 3 batters in 1 inning, tying a record. A record that'll never be broken because the way they warn and throw guys out right away, so pretty sure that 3 hit batters in a record that's one of those records that'll never be broken. They talk about, like Nolan Ryan's career strikeouts or Ricky Henderson's stolen bases, home runs. I think 3 hit batters in an inning will never be broken. It's pretty safe. 1960, the AFL, American Football League, begins placing players' names on the back of their jerseys. 1967, Dean Chance of the Minnesota Twins has a second no-hitter of the month as he beats Cleveland 2-1. 1978, Major League Baseball umpires stage a one-day strike, which was actually a little bit outside. 1980, sorry, rim shots.
Awesome.
1985, speaking of strikes, Mets Dwight Gooden becomes the youngest pitcher to win 20 games in a season. He was 20 years, 9 months, and 9 days old, for those of you keeping track. Birthdays. The man with the mustache, Raleigh Fingers, American baseball relief pitcher for the A's, Cy Young Award winner in 81, MVP, was born 1946 in Ohio. 1966, Albert Don't Call Me Joey Bell of the Cleveland Indians was born in Shreveport, Louisiana. 1972, Marvin Harris of the Colts, wide receiver, born. Marvin Harrison, just a great receiver, just kind of like the Kent Herbeck of first baseman in the 80s, just a long time for Marvin. There were so many other superstar receivers at the time. I felt kind of bad for him, kind of lost in the shuffle sometimes.
But boy, the numbers he put up over his career.
Yeah, just great. And then so sad to hear about his life just going to pot afterwards, after he got out of football. But that was me for a blog report someday later on. Whatever happened to Marvin Harrison? 1926, or I'm sorry, August 26, 1912. Walter Johnson's 16-game winning streak ends for pitchers. It's hard to see a pitcher get 16 wins in a season now. He had a 16-game winning streak in 1912. 1991, Royals Brett Saberhagen no hits the White Sox 7-0. Birthdays, 1965, pro wrestler Bobby Duncombe Jr. had a birthday. August 27th, 1977, Toby Harrah and Bump Wills had back-to-back inside the park home runs off Yankees Ken Clay at Yankee Stadium.
Now that's probably
Rangers.
something that'll never happen again.
Yeah, there's another never happened, back-to-back inside the Parkers. So, wow. 1982, Ricky Henderson steals his 119th base of the season to break Lou Brock's mark.
There he is on the screen here.
There's Ricky. Ricky being Ricky. Birthdays, 1970, Jim Tomei of the Cleveland Indians and many other teams, but kind of made his mark with the Indians. Birthday. You know, and I didn't think he was that old. I mean, I was born in 1970, so what am I saying? But I didn't think he was that old, to tell you the truth. I thought that was kind of surprising to me. August 28th, 1989. New York Mets Frank Viola outdueled Oral Hershiser of the Dodgers 1-0. Both those pitchers had great seasons that year, so that was just a phenomenal game. 1-0 between those two. Very cool game.
Here's his baseball card is up there now. Mets 26.
Frankie sweet me. A quick story about that. Me and some buddies were in St. Louis to see the Mets and Cardinals play when Frankie got traded to the Mets. You've always heard the stories how when a player goes somewhere else, they always try to, hey, I always wore that number. Can I get that number that you have from someone else? Frankie wore 16. It was funny when he went to the Mets. Dwight Gooden was there wearing number 16, so he gave it a shot. He goes, I got to ask. Dwight's like, no. So, 26 it was. 1991, Tom Browning versus the Expos Dennis Martinez and Expos Dennis Martinez. Both perfect games that day. So that was pretty cool. Two pitchers, one day, perfect games. Birthdays, Sweet Lou Piniella, 1943 was born. Outfielder for the Yankees. He was Rookie of the Year. He also used to manage the Yankees and the Mariners. I think Tampa Bay Rays at the end of his career there, too. Was born in Tampa, Florida. He was the manager of the year. The Mariners had the best record in baseball, 117 wins or something like that, and then lost in the second round of the playoffs. That was Sweet Lou Piniella.
Okay.
1971, Janet Evans, American swimmer, Olympic gold medalist. In 88 and 92, she was born in the state of Fullerton, California. August 29th, 1972, San Francisco Giant Jim Barr retires the first 20 batters he faced, added to the last 21 he faced 6 days earlier for a record of 41 in a row. So that's another tough stat to break, I think, right there. Birthdays, 1977, Roy Oswalt, pitcher. I was born in Weir, Mississippi. And August 30th, 1965, Casey Stengel announces his retirement after 55 years in baseball. And 1987, Kirby Puckett goes 6 for 6 with 2 homers in the win over Milwaukee. I think that was the weekend where he did that on a Saturday and Sunday. He went 4 for 4. They called it the weekend of the puck, 10 for 10 or something like that.
I think that is. I remember listening to that when that unfolded that weekend. It was unreal.
Yeah, the perfect weekend, 10 for 10 or the weekend of the puck, something like that. The big weekend for Kirby that weekend. 87. That year turned out pretty good for the Twins, I recall.
Yes, I would agree.
They did okay. Birthdays, 1918, Ted Williams, one of the greatest true hitters ever. Last guy to hit 400 was born. With Red Sox AL MVP in 46-49, Triple Crown in 42 and 47. So, Ted Williams born 1918. And that is it for the sports segment of history and birthdays. We listen to the music segment here. August 24th, 1981. The Rolling Stones released Tattoo You. The big hit from the album is Start Me Up, which they first recorded as a reggae rhythm in 1977. That version was scrapped. They rocked it up a bit for Tattoo You with much better results.
It was a reggae musical piece
reggae
first.
version in 77, yeah.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, and for some reason I don't want to go hear it just because I don't want to ruin the image I have of the version I've heard growing up, you know?
Interesting.
Sometimes there's some remakes or original versions you don't want to go back and listen to you don't want to ruin the image you have now. 1989, The Who performed a special 20th anniversary charity concert of the rock opera Tommy at Universal Amphitheater in LA. Featured guests of Elton John as the Pinball Wizard, Patti LaBelle as Acid Queen, Steve Winwood as Hawker, Phil Collins as Uncle Ernie, and Billy Idol as Cousin Kevin. That would have been cool to see. Nice, big names there, big names.
Oh, yes.
1967, Keith Moon, drummer of the aforementioned Who, drives his Lincoln Continental, not a Rolls Royce, as often thought, into a swimming pool at the Holiday Inn in Flint, Michigan, to celebrate his 21st birthday.
Perfectly normal.
Here's the sad part. That earned their entire band a lifetime ban from the chain. I think they got over it.
Yes.
So that's kind of a double dip. That's a history and birthday there for Keith Moon on that day. Other birthdays, 1951, Danny Joe Brown, lead singer of Molly Hatchet, was born in Jacksonville, Florida.
Here he is. Here's the image on the screen here.
And that was the image back in the late 70s there. Everybody had football jersey number shirts they wore like that. So happy with that image of them.
Number 75.
Any band picture back there, someone had a football number or a shirt like that. It's kind of funny. 1947, Jim Fox, drummer of the James Gang, was born in Cleveland, Ohio. August 25th, 2009, Skillet's Awake album debuts at number 2 on the U.S. album charts, tying with Underoath's Define the Great Line and Casting Crowns' The Altar and the Door, the highest charting Christian rock album. The album also featured their first Hot 100 entry, Awake and Alive. Now, Skillet's one of those bands, when you listen to them, you don't think Christian rock right away, which is kind of cool. I think that's why they were so popular, the crossover. You don't think of them as Christian rock when you first hear them. So if you've never heard Skillet, give them a shout, give them a listen, tell me what you think. 1994, Jimmy Page and Robert Plant of Led Zeppelin reunite in a London studio to record the concert that became the MTV special Unleaded.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Beginning of the recreation of bands getting together for tours back in that era. 2006, longtime Aerosmith bassist Tom Hamilton misses his first gig in 24 years after being diagnosed with throat cancer. 1988, Metallica issued their 4th studio album, And Justice for All, featuring the song One and To Live Is To Die. That's kind of the album. Ride the Lightning was good, but that's kind of the one that I think, in my opinion, put Metallica over the top.
Yeah, that was
they were
very
the top
good.
already, but this linked them as not, okay, they're not a one-hit wonder band. This something like, okay, these guys are for real. The last album wasn't just, okay, they're cool. No, they stuck with this one and really did a lot.
Every song on there is good.
Right. I don't think it's bad. I would hate to try to list the 5 best songs on the album because you could ask 10 people and you get 10 different lists. So, 1987, Motley Crue lead singer Vince Neil suffers a mustard-related injury when he angrily breaks a jar of goons before a show in Rochester, New York. He wanted to crunch his mustard. The show was canceled, and Neil is airlifted to Baltimore, where surgeons work to repair the nerve and tendon damage in his hand. Now, I'm not one to talk, but I think that should be a sign from Vince right now. If you've seen recent pictures of Vince Neil, to lay off the mustard. Vince is not the picture of perfect health. I don't know if that's from the drinking, the drugs, the mustard. I don't know. But when you throw a bottle of mustard and it comes back and ruins your hand so much you need nerve and tendon damage, time to reevaluate a few things in your life, I think, right there. Birthdays, 1966. DJ Terminator X of Public Enemy is born Norman Lee Rogers. He would also go on to become an ostrich farmer before embarking on a solo career.
Nice.
1960, yeah. You get all the money from Public Enemy, live your dream, be an Oscar charmer. What the hell? 1962, Vivian Campbell, who would go on to replace the late Steve Clark in Def Leppard, is born in Northern Ireland. Now, Vivian Campbell's a perfect example of guys, long hair in the 80s and no hair now. So, it's kind of funny watching all of our hair band or rock band heroes of the 70s and 80s with no hair now. It's kind of funny. Speaking of hair and mullets, 1961, Billy Ray Cyrus was born in Flatwoods, Kentucky.
Oh, yes.
So, a mullet. Yeah, let's leave it at that. 1956, Matt Aiken of the songwriting team Stock Aitken Waterman is born in England. Among their hits is Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Astley. I had to throw that one in there.
Oh, yes.
1951, Rob Halford of Judas Priest is born in England. Like I said before, Rob Halford's a great follow on Instagram. He's got pictures of him with his cat or something silly like that. But he's still Rob Halford though too, so that's what's kind of cool.
Oh, yes, yes.
1949, Gene Simmons of Kiss is born in Walls of Haifa, Israel, to Nazi concentration camp survivor Florida Klein, and her husband Fury. Now, I don't know if you have the picture of Gene up there from the movie Runaway with Tom Selleck. We've all seen Gene with the makeup and Kiss and everything else. I had to find one of those movie pictures, so there's with Runaway. I think Jesse Ventura was in that movie too for some reason. That rings a bell to me. But Runaway with Tom Selleck and Gene Simmons, the perfect Saturday afternoon it's raining movie to watch on Channel 9. That's one of those things.
Yes.
It's a good, corny movie. You get to watch it. It's to say you did it. August 26th, 1978, Frankie Valli's Grease, the title track of the blockbuster film, hits #1 in America. 2016, Ann Wilson of Heart, her husband, is arrested for assault after getting physical with Nancy Wilson's 16-year-old twin sons, causing a rift between the Hart sisters, who finished their tour using separate dressing rooms and avoiding contact. Now, I've known other pictures I've seen they've kissed and made up since because Ann and Nancy are touring again together. That end of a tour, your family, stress, everything else got to it. You have family with you, things are going to happen. 1977, Kiss play in front of 3 nights at the Forum in Inglewood, California. The show is compiled for their Live 2 album, released later that October. Birthdays. 1942, Maureen Mo Tucker, drummer of the Velvet Underground, is born in New York. August 27, 1991, Pearl Jam released their debut album 10, which launches them to stardom and puts them on the forefront of the Seattle grunge movement. 1990, 35-year-old Stevie Ray Vaughan dies in a helicopter crash near East Troy, Wisconsin, following a concert at the Alpine Valley Music Theater, where earlier in the evening he appeared with Robert Cray, Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, and his brother Jimmy Vaughan. 1996, Pearl Jam released their 4th album, No Code, which debuts at #1 in the U.S. Birthdays, August, of this date, 1956, Glenn Matlock, original bassist of the Sex Pistols, was born in London, England. In 1949, country rock musician Jeff Cook of Alabama is born in Payne, Alabama. I looked up some stuff on him. He'd had some health issues lately, so I hope everything's going good for him.
I've got his image up there on the screen, too.
The fiddle player from Alabama. There he is, yep.
Okay.
1942, Daryl Dragon, the captain of Captain Tennille, was born in Los Angeles. His father is a conductor, Carmen Dragon. August 28th, 1964, the Beatles smoked pot for the first time, which is supplied to him by Bob Dylan, who joined the band after one of their concerts in New York State. Dylan was surprised they haven't tried it before, as he thought the song I Get High and their song I Want to Hold Your Hand, when it's really I Can't Hide, is the lyrics. He thought it says I Get High. 1943, Actor-singer David Soul was born. David Richard Solberg Jr. in Chicago, Illinois. Soul played Hutch to Paul Michael Glasser's Starsky in the 70s crime series Starsky and Hutch. Now that car they had there was a 1976 Ford Gran Torino.
There it is.
The movie Gran Torino is also about a 76 Ford Gran Torino. I don't know. I kind of like that car better than the General Lee. I don't know why.
It's fair.
I think I just like Starsky and Hutch better than Bo and Luke. See, because Starsky and Hutch you couldn't replace. They tried to replace Bo and Luke with Coy and Vance for a while, and they got into General Lee, and that kind of dirtied the car. Starsky and Hutch drove this car always. That's why I got to give the edge to the Gran Torino here. Sorry, Rick. Cash, I'm sure you're all mad now. 1925. Song and dance man Donald O'Connor is born in Chicago, Illinois, known for the Singing in the Rain with Gene Kelly. Those two did some good movies together. Early musicals, if you will. Singing in the Rain is a pretty good movie. August 29th, 1966. The Beatles play their last concert, wrapping up the tour at Candlestick Park in San Francisco. Jaded by poor sound system and the rigors of the road, they turn their attention to studio work. 1986. The studio in Philadelphia where American Bandstand was shot is entered into the U.S. National Register as a historic place. And his birthday is 1958. Michael Jackson was born in Gary, Indiana. In 1920, jazz saxophonist Charles Bird Parker is born in Kansas City, Kansas. He was raised in Kansas City, Missouri. Make sure you get that straight in case you're on Jeopardy or something like that.
Yes.
Right. August 30th, Billy Joel. 1993, August 30th, Billy Joel is the first musical guest on David Letterman's first show after moving to CBS. Now, some people may ask, it's 1993. Why Billy Joel? Because if I recall the story, David Letterman's first show on NBC, his first night, Billy Joel was the musical guest. So he tried to bring back everyone from that first show for CBS, and Billy was the musical guest, so there it is. Birthdays, 1950. Mickey Moody, guitarist for Whitesnake, is born in Middlesbrough, North Yorkshire, England. In 1935, Papa John Phillips, Mamas and Papas, not the pizza place, is born in South Carolina. He'd be raised in Alexandria, Virginia. And that, sir, is this week in sports and music, birthday, and history.
Perfect.
What do you have? What do you have for the album review this week, sir? I heard we had a request from a fan.
Yeah, this week's request came in, and see if you can pick up this tune.
Ah, yes.
Well, that's Dokken, Alone Again, the song, the love ballad, we'll call it. But the album I'm doing this week is Dokken, Tooth and Nail, and it's, I'll bring it up here. Tooth and Nail by Don Dokken and Company. Tooth and Nail is the second studio album by American heavy metal band Dokken. It was released on September 14th, 1984 through Elektra Records. And so this one recorded between April and August of 1984. So at the end of August here, as we are now, 36 years ago, this week they were wrapping up the recording of Tooth and Nail. That's getting out there. They recorded that at Cherokee Studios, Hollywood, California. Total length 38 minutes 11 seconds. Now, after the unsuccessful release of the band's debut album in the US, the record label was reluctant to give credit to Dokken for a follow-up. Dokken's management struggled to convince the label's executives to give the band another chance. And this fight for recognition is reflected in the album's title, Tooth and Nail. The album was the first with new bassist Jeff Pilson. The production of the album was entrusted to renowned producer Tom Werman, But the recordings were hampered by the clash of egos between vocalist Don Dokken and guitarist George Lynch, who could not even work together in a studio at the same time, and by the excesses of the musicians and their technicians. So they finally get Tom Werman, the renowned producer, to produce this album. And for these reasons, Werman was unable to carry on his work and quit the job after only 2 weeks. Was replaced by Roy Thomas Baker and Michael Wagoner, who completed the recordings and mixed the album. The music of the album ranges from fast and aggressive tracks to pop and melodic ballads, representing a transition from classic heavy metal to the more commercial glam metal. And so this is the genre here with Dokken is considered heavy metal and glam metal. Tooth and Nail received some positive reviews, but was a slow seller, reaching the peak of number 49 on the U.S. Billboard 200 album chart, and was gold status for more than 10 months after its release. But after the wake of the success of the album, of the single Alone Again that I just played, and its accompanying music video, the album was then certified platinum in 1989. But this came after their previous album, Under Lock and Key and Back for the Attack, had already achieved platinum status. So Tooth and Nail quickly became gold, but it took 4 years before it actually reached platinum status. Now, I will go to the track listings here. The first song is called Without Warning. That's an instrumental. Song 2 is Tooth and Nail. Song 3, Just Got Lucky. Song 4, Heartless Heart. 5, Don't Close Your Eyes. Song 6, When Heaven Comes Down. Song 7, Into the Fire. Song 8, Bullets to Spare. Song 9, Alone Again. And 10, Turn On the Action. Don Dokken does lead vocals, George Lynch on guitars, Jeff Pilson on bass, Mick Brown on the drums. Now, after the debut of their album Breaking the Chains on the French label in 1981, Dokken had toured in support of the album in Europe, but was still relegated in local clubs in the U.S. where the album had yet not been issued. Only when Dokken came under the management of the influential Q Prime Inc., which also represented the successful Def Leppard and later Metallica, the band signed a contract with the major American label Elektra Records and eventually had the album released in their home country in September of 1983. Dokken went out on an arena tour in the U.S. in support of the act, and they as a support act for Aldo Nova, Blue Oyster Cult, and Rainbow. But the band's increased exposure did not save the remix reissue from the commercial failure, and Elektra mediated to drop them. Their management convinced the label to finance the release of another album instead. So they had some tough time getting out of the gates, so to say, with their first album and now with their second one. Their previous bassist left to join an up-and-coming group in LA called Rat, and guitarist George Lynch had quit and rejoined multiple times. But it was apparent from the start, a manifest incompatibility of character between Lynch and vocalist Don Dokken, which prevented the two from working together, more than once escalated in open hostility. During Lynch's lapses of membership, Dokken tried out other guitarists, including Warren DeMartini, who later joined Rat, when that band's career beginning to take off. George Lynch actually auditioned for Ozzy Osbourne's band to replace the deceased drummer Randy Rhoads, but was not selected. And finally, he settled in with Dokken after the release of their first album in the U.S. Lynch began laying down some guitar riffs and music ideas on a 4-track recorder at his home in 1983, and was soon joined by Pilson and drummer Mick Brown. The three of these guys formed a cohesive songwriting team which produced several demos, including lyrics and vocals. This was still, Lynch and Dokken didn't get along, So Lynch says, I'll get a recorder at home and lay down some of these songwriting, excluding the vocals, and Don can come in later and do those. Don Dokken was excluded from this creative stage and worked on songs and lyrics on his own time or with Pilson. But the power ballad Alone Again was the result of Dokken and Pilson collaborating, and is the reworking of a song written by Dokken back in 1975 that he wrote. George Lynch, again, opposed the inclusion of this song on the album because he did not want any ballads on the album. Oh, this is awesome. But finally was convinced otherwise. According to Don Dokken, he said the band wrote 25 songs in this period and then narrowed it down to the 10 best. And once again, to the title here, Tooth and Nail, Don Dokken is quoted by saying, Elektra wanted to drop us. They said, forget this band. They aren't going to go anywhere. Our managers had to beg them to keep us on the label. They said, we'll give you one more shot. So we were up against the wall. That's why we came up with the title, Tooth and Nail. If we were going to make it, it was going to be a fight. And Dokken is considered players of both the hair/pop metal glam metal subgenre by many critics and fans. Tooth and Nail, though, was included in various polls as one of the best glam metal albums. However, in a recent interview, Don Dokken disclaimed the band's belonging to that category. Didn't like it, of course. He said, I don't want to be compared with acts like Poison, Winger, and Motley Crue. And so, let's see here what else we've got. So, remember, they brought in the producer they wanted to have produce. He didn't last 2 weeks with these characters and says, I'm out. So they bring in Tom Werman. Now, Werman had been in the music business and helped produce multi-platinum albums with Cheap Trick, Molly Hatchet, Ted Nugent, and Motley Crue's second album, Shout at the Devil. So he was there to keep things in check. And then they also brought in Jeff Workman, who did some of the other production work on this. But his behavior also didn't mesh very easily. So the troubled relationship only added up to the escalating clash of egos between Lynch and Dokken, which was furtherly exacerbated by the abuse of cocaine and alcohol by the musicians and the technicians. So Werman had to set up a working schedule to avoid the contemporary presence of the guitarist and the vocalist in the studio at the same time. And so he had to put together a morning session schedule and an afternoon session schedule because Dokken and George Lynch never worked in the recording studio together. After a few weeks of work, the situation finally exploded with Lynch violently rejected Werman's advice for some of his guitar solos and refused to work with him on the rest of the album. Well, then Werman quit, left for a summer vacation with his family. And so they went back and forth with this. They finally went back and asked and got him back. And so with Wegner's help, they were able to bring in also a British producer by the name of Roy Thomas Baker. He was famous for his work with Queen, Journey, and the Cars. And so his main goal was really to keep the band in check. So
Very interesting story.
that's it. I found that all very very interesting. Once again, it did go platinum. There's a lot of people involved with it, and this was 36 years ago.
I was listening to another podcast today, Chris Jericho's podcast, Talk of Jericho.
Oh, yes.
We had Don Dokken on just this week, and Don does not like being called a hair band. He's a rock and roller, you know. And getting back to the Alone Again on Tooth and Nail, like Don said, a lot of albums, a lot of artists, even Jericho admitted this with his band Fozzy, you write like 16, 17 songs, and you release 10. You keep the others as a just in case, for other reasons. They were all set to release Tooth and Nail, and at that time they were about to release it, that's when all these rock bands were releasing ballads. 18 on Life by Skid Row came out. You know, all this other stuff. The producers came to Don going, you have a ballad we could throw on here? Don's like, not really. You know? And Alone Again gets put on there, and the rest is, you found out, was history. But they had the album all set, ready to go without Alone Again on there.
Wow.
We need some ballads. We need a ballad, you know? So that's how Alone Again got put on there.
Well, Alone Again was released as a single after the tour had concluded, and then became later the band's biggest hit, spending 14 weeks on the chart. And so that was really, and it also got strong rotation in the music videos on MTV at the time, and really it took off.
And him and George said the issue with him and George are both alpha males, so it just didn't work. And if you look at George Lynch towards the end of it, George Lynch was kind of becoming a workout fiend too. He tried to have the big arms and everything else. And Don mentioned the fact that between George, he had to work out before he goes on stage. Well, now you're tired, you can't carry the guitar, and he goes, between that and the steroids, well, then you throw in alcohol and drugs and everything else, no wonder no one's getting along. And he goes, Jeff Pilson was just sitting back with his Jack and Coke and just watch it all fall apart, you know? And Mick Brown, the drummer, just sat there playing, you know, so those two stayed back. Pilson always wanted to be the lead singer.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And he'd done a couple songs, a couple albums on his own after, because they did a stadium tour, the Monsters of Rock tour. And they went out with all these other bands. It was, we'll play in the middle of summer in Texas in these stadiums, you know. People are dropping. After that, Don Dokken quit his own band. Because of legal rights, all four of them own the name Dokken for the band. So Don Dokken could not go out and record as Dokken anymore, even though that's his name.
Okay.
The other three tried to record as Dokken and go on, and no one wanted anything to do with it because Don wasn't there. You know, so they figured all that out later on and everything else too, but it was kind of a cluster, and Don tells the story on this Chris Jericho podcast about the manager goes, hey, I want you to come to this club, see this band I want to sign. He goes, I've already signed him, I want you to come see him. All right. They watch him, and this guy goes, you watch, in a couple of years, it'll be the next greatest thing ever. Don's like, I don't see it. It was Metallica.
Oh, okay.
You know, and when they were on the Monsters of Rock tour, Don goes, you know, Metallica playing before us. He goes, yes, I know we're making more than Metallica's on tour, but let us open for Metallica because how are they going to, they're playing stuff off Ride the Lightning that just came out, they're doing this and that, da-da-da-da. Now I got to come on saying Alone Again? You know, it's not happening. You know, I can't follow that up because Don, he's got a different type of voice than a lot of rock and roll people, hair band. He's more a rocker, like a Journey or everything else, you know, like you mentioned. He couldn't pull off some of those hard rock songs like George Lynch wanted.
And some of the earlier Dokken also did have some speed metal in there, which
Well, listen to the songs they didn't release.
Metallica
They're not
was
really family-friendly songs either. You know, I mean, there weren't gory horror, you know, rape, drugs, and kill songs, but there weren't good sing-along in the car songs like, you know, Breaking the Chains was or something like that, you know.
Yeah, the lead single is called "Into the Fire," which received enough radio coverage to spend eight weeks on the top 40 Billboard's hot mainstream rock tracks, and so that got up there. Finally peaked at number 21 and was on the chart for a total of 11 weeks. The music video for that song also received moderate airplay on MTV, and then the song had a minor revamp in 1987 when it was featured on the soundtrack of the horror movie Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors.
Yep.
And Don Dokken wrote that, called it,
a song for that too, yep.
and it was called Dream Warriors, newly written, that Don had to do that.
And if you look at the video, look up on YouTube, guys, the video for Breaking the Chains. Breaking the Chains. Jeff Pilson had just signed up the band like a couple weeks before that, a couple days before that. He didn't know the song. So watch Jeff Pilson try to play bass during that song in that video. Typical 80s video, just hilarious. I mean, at the time I thought it was awesome. Yeah, all right, but now that I'm older and I look back and know this stuff, watch Jeff Pilson playing bass on the Breaking the Chains video. Funny stuff.
I'm going to have to do that. I have not seen that. I'll have to plug that into YouTube here tonight after the show.
So put a link on the Facebook page maybe too.
It's
kind of funny.
That's good. And the final thing here on this album, To support the release of the album, the band started a U.S. tour in 1984 in Texas. And during the tour, they were opening up for acts such as Twisted Sister, Y&T, Dio, and Kiss. Later said they did open a little bit for Sammy Hagar and for a few dates with Loudness. Are you familiar with Loudness?
Loudness from Japan, because Dokken was big in Japan and Germany when he got his start.
Oh, that's what it was. I wasn't familiar with them.
He was starting in L.A. I won't get this, so you got to listen to the Jericho one about the L.A. scene and how he goes, the scenes you hear everybody else talk about, it's all a lie. He goes, he's gotten in hook with a guy who worked with the Scorpions when he was in Germany. And this kid who translated for him in Germany was like their translator for stuff, because Don goes, none of us spoke German. And this kid was the Scorpions translator when he was in the States because he spoke good English. So they kind of hooked up with the Scorpions that way. The Scorpions did an album, and the lead singer of Scorpions was sick or had problems with his throat. Don came in and recorded the high-pitched voices for their songs on one of the Scorpion albums.
Oh, really?
Yes.
See, I always learn something new on Sports and Songs podcast.
Yeah, see, and granted, this is all credit to the Chris Jericho podcast, so it's not research I did on my own. I mean, I kind of did research, I listened to it, but
that was...
you did on the Chris Jericho podcast, Talking with Jericho, don't want to,
That is
Chris
just...
Jericho's got some wrestling stuff, some rock stuff. He's had some really good interviews on in the past. Highly recommended show for people to listen to.
And that was just this last Wednesday that aired.
Yeah, just a couple of days ago. I listened to it today. It's his most recent one on, if you go to his, wherever you find your podcasts, right after Sports and Songs on your favorites, listen to Talk to His Jericho podcast, and go from there.
All right, well, that's all I've got for this. Like I said, please leave your comments below and requests. Anything else here for the show, Andy?
No, just like baseball stuff going on. Teams making up games from the pandemic. I know the Yankees had a lot of games this week. So that's kind of interesting to see how the standings are changing there. Football, still don't know what's going on with the NFL. I know Monday I got my fantasy football draft. Don't know how that's going to work out. We're all deciding, those of you who play fantasy football, we're going, geez, we had 2 more spots for if someone gets COVID to bench them or not. We're still figuring that out just like the NFL is. So.
All right, I'll leave you with Dokken, Alone Again.
All right, see you later.